Hello, Miss Steele here. So this week we are talking about art movements, and specifically we're talking about Cubism. Cubism was an art movement where artists would take things from our everyday life and kind of abstract them using simple shapes. And an art movement is when a bunch of artists at the same time are making artwork that looks the same for the same reason. Art movements are how we organize art. For this project, you want 2 white pieces of paper. You want a pencil and an eraser, definitely our art tool basics. You want some crowns, some markers, specifically a black marker, so I have an extra, glue, and scissors. I'm going to move most of the stuff out of the way so we can get started. So we are focusing on an artist named Klee. He was a Cubist artist, and he would create different cities or even a lot of animals using Cubism. So he liked to abstract them, meaning that they did not have to look realistic using those simple shapes. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw our own Klee cats. So to start, we're going to draw a really big W on our paper, like that. And you want it to be round at the end. Once I have my big W on my paper, I am going to draw a V in between here. So I'm going to make a little spot where I think it's about halfway. And then I'm going to draw a V like that. So we drew a W and then we drew a V. So now what we want to do is we want to add in some eyes, and we want them to kind of have this lemon shape. So what I do is I draw one round line and then another round line just like that. So now I'm going to do that same thing on the other side. So I'm going to draw one round line and then another. I want to give my cat a nose, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing going from the eyes to this part of my W. So one round line, 2 round lines, just like that. Now we're going to add in some details. So I'm going to give my cat some eyes so he can see a little bit better. Right here on the nose, I'm going to add 1 bump, 2 bumps, and now it's almost shaped like a heart. I want my cat to have some whiskers. So I'm going to draw him some whiskers. Right here underneath my W, I'm going to add a bump for his mouth, and then he needs a neck. I also want to add a little bird up here on top of his head, like what we saw in Klee's art. So for that, I am going to draw 1 round line, another one, and then I'm going to draw the head, give the bird an eyeball, and then some feet, like that. So now we have a little bird on top of the head of our cat. What we want to do now is we want to use a black marker, and we want to go over all of our pencil lines. And this is really going to help us whenever we're coloring in, because we want to use different colors for different sections. So I don't want 2 colors right next to each other. So if I add blue right here, I want to think about what other areas I could add blue into that are not super close together. So I'm going to get this all outlined, and then like I normally do, I'm going to go back with my eraser and erase any pencil lines that might be hanging out that I need to clean up just to make this look more finished. So once I get this outlined and I get that eraser line cleaned up, we will move on to our next step. All right, so now we're going to grab some markers and some crowns. I like to color these in using markers and crowns because I think it looks good next to each other, having some like marker ink and some of that texture from crowns. But we're just going to start filling in these different sections using different colors. So how you color yours in is kind of up to you. but you definitely want to try to use different colors for different sections because that'll really help it look cubist. Because whenever we're talking about cubism or cubist art, like what we have right here, those different shapes are really important. So using different colors and those different shapes really help each of them stick out. So I'm going to work on getting my Paw Klee cat all colored in. And then we will move on to our next step. All right, so I have just 2 more areas I need to finish coloring. And you can see I used crown for some of my areas and markers for others. I think that it helps not like the shapes get so lost because there's so many different textures between the 2 of them. And using different colors for different shapes makes it to where all the shapes kind of stand out. So they don't, you know, fade into the background because they're all the same color. So I'm just going to add a few more final touches. And then actually what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out. You want to cut as close to the black line as you can. I actually colored underneath my bird because I thought it'd be too hard to try to like cut out that under area. So I'm just going to cut around it. So you want to try to get as close to the black line as possible. If you have to cut next to the black line because it's a little too hard, that's okay too. So your next step would be cutting this out. And then we're actually going to use the other paper for our background. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that once I get this cut out. So once you have it all colored in, your next step will be cutting out your Paw Klee inspired cat. So once I get this cut out, we will start on our backgrounds. So now that I have my cat cut out, I'm going to start on my background. I want to grab a black marker. And then using this black marker, I'm going to make some straight lines going down my paper. I want to try to make them pretty even, but if they're not exactly evenly spaced out, that is okay. So once I have all my lines going this way, I'm going to add some lines going the other way. And I'm going to make them uneven. So I'm just going to kind of put them in randomly. And then just like I did for my Paw Klee cat, I'm going to color them in so I can put this on top. So I'm going to use different markers and different crowns to color in these different squares. And once I have it all colored in, I can add my Paw Klee cat on top. So I'm going to work on getting these colored in using different colors for the different size squares and rectangles. And then we will be finished. So for our background, we added our straight lines going down, and then we added some lines going the other way. And now I'm going to work on getting them filled in with color. So I'm going to work on this, and then once I'm done, we'll put our Paw Klee cat onto our background. So I have this all colored in. You can see I used markers for some of my areas. And then in other areas, I used crowns just because I like the mix between the ink and the wax of crowns. And so now I can see if I like it more this way or this way. And I think I like it this way more. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my glue and then add a thin line going around my Paw Klee cat like that. Flip it around, try to put it as much in the center as I can. And then I'm going to squish it down, and then just like that, our cubist Paw Klee inspired cats with little birds on their head are all finished. I'm going to go find a safe place for this to dry, try to clean up any glue that might be coming out of the edges. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, your evening, your afternoon, whenever you're watching this. Bye.